Hello, and welcome to this recorded interview about the neuroscience of proactive coaching. Today, we're joined by neuromanagement expert, executive performance coach, TEDx speaker, and author of 5 Brain Leadership, Carlos Davidovich. A trained medical doctor, Carlos now uses his understanding of the brain to look at neuromanagement coaching modalities that lead to evident and sustainable changes in coaching. Hi, Carlos.
Hi, hello, good morning.
Yeah, good
Hi,
morning to you.
Joseph. Really happy to be here. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. We're so pleased that we could have this time with you, and thank you for agreeing to be interviewed about this fantastic and exciting topic. Before we dive into any questions that we're going to go through, I'd love to give you some space to tell our watchers and listeners a little bit more about you and your background.
Excellent. Okay, right now, let's start from the end. I mean, what I do right now, I'm executive coach and I work with clients all over the world. And also, I give workshops on neuromanagement.
Mm.
So, applying very practical tips on how the brain works in organizations and business. And that's what I do. Those are my two activities today.
Yeah.
But my background starts from I was born and raised in Argentina, and my experience goes from medicine. I worked as a medical doctor many years. I did several post degree in psychology as well. I never thought I was going to use them. It was for me just to learn.
Yeah.
But now is the core of my work. And also I had experience in business. So I went almost, yeah, again 20 years on pharmaceutical business in biotechnology. So that gave me a good approach and sense of what happened in organizations and what business are about. Around 2000, moved to Europe, and that's when I had to reinvent it myself,
Mm.
and I started working on what I'm doing today.
Mm.
Based on my background as a medical doctor and experience in business, I found out that connecting those two worlds was going to be a good opportunity to present myself in that way. I know that other people are doing similar things, of course, but all of us, we do it in our personal way.
Absolutely.
So I came to live to Europe, and then I had a quite, I would say, unexpected surprise. I was invited to live and work in Canada, and I spent 7 years of my life there.
Mm.
So doing exactly the same work. So that gave me a huge experience in different sectors, different platforms. I mean, I was working with a lot of people, and the pandemic brought me back to Madrid, where I am right now. So I'm living in Europe and having great time because now we can do it online. That's something that didn't happen before. So I think in a nutshell, I think it's enough. I had a chance, of course, to write a book about 5 brains and work in another book that is already published about personality DNA,
Mm.
and to give the TED talk, the TEDx talk about coaching, because that is really what is in my heart, coaching. So when I received the proposal from Coactive Coaching, I was absolutely fascinated.
Mm.
And I said, yeah, of course. I mean, let's work on this. And today, I mean, I'm looking forward to share that information with you.
Yeah, and we're so delighted that you said yes to this. And I'm in awe personally of your rich and diverse background. What a wonderful plethora of experiences that you've had. And I'm not surprised that you've been led to this intersection of where neuroscience and psychology meets professional coaching. And yeah, just so delighted we can be here together. Um, well, if our watchers and listeners are anything like me, they're really curious to learn a bit more about neuroscience, right, and how it applies to coaching. And so the
Okay.
first question I hope is the easiest one, which is, would you tell us a little bit about neuroscience and why that's important?
Let's put it this way. Uh, what you know as much as me, Joseph, people are eager to know more about themselves.
Yeah.
And the most attractive organ that people are interested in is the brain. So, I mean, to understand how we behave, to understand how we connect to each other, because sometimes there is a wrong understanding of neuroscience. We
Mm.
are not talking about research on the technical side of neuroscience. We are talking about applied neuroscience in human behavior. So we are talking about the concrete aspect on how we deal with each other. That is my area of expertise. I never talk about, let's say, all the mechanic of the brain, let's say.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is not the interesting part. And in that sense, through my career, and you know that to talk about the brain became a trend worldwide.
Mm.
Everybody wants, and many people does it. So what I found out is more you know about the foundation, what is behind
Mm.
about our behavior, is easier for you to not only understand, to handle and to know what to do. And
Mm.
even to be prepared to certain reactions, yours or from others, that you didn't understand before. And now we can understand exactly where that comes from,
Yeah.
how that can be, how can you deal with them, and all this information about how the system works is
Mm.
giving us a huge opportunity to improve in knowing ourselves and maybe mainly connecting with others. And that comes from neuroscience, or let's say an applied psychology based on neuroscience.
Yeah, I understand completely what you're saying, and you use such beautiful words. And the thing that resonates deeply with me is this idea of us being neurotranslators, right?
Exactly.
Not neuroscientists. And I've had the pleasure of watching your TED talk, and I have seen you being a neurotranslator, helping us understand the humanness behind our brain, right?
Exactly.
And what that means to be more connected to ourselves and to others. And that's wonderful. And despite having said that we weren't going to go in necessarily to the mechanics of the brain, I think it's important that we touch on something you mentioned earlier, which is to do with the brain being a system. So
Absolutely.
I'm curious if you'd be willing to explain a little bit about neural networks to us,
Excellent.
and how do we use neural networks and reprogram those networks in character coaching?
Excellent. I mean, let's let's see it in this way. Number one, today the latest way to understand the brain is called the model of the adaptive brain.
Mm.
The brain was adaptive from ever, let's say from the beginning.
Mhm.
But now we talk about that based on one key concept, the concept of holiness. I mean, whole, WHO,
Yes,
okay?
obvious, yes.
Not HO. So what I mean is definitely what we understand today, what we know today based on neuroscience is the brain works as a whole, as a
Mm.
one unit, activating different parts based on needs. But those parts, they don't work independently from the rest.
Mhm.
So let's put it in these words. There are certain areas that they have specific, let's say, job descriptions.
Yeah,
But even though the rest of the brain will support them,
yeah.
so the whole brain is activated at once, and the different parts are supporting each other. And this is, I think, is the right time to connect this with the concept of coactive coaching
Mm.
to understand the person as a whole. And when I saw that, when I read that about the coactive coaching model, I said, got it. That is the core of the whole system.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that when we are in front of a client, the client is a whole being for us, where
Mm.
all the parts are integrated and are connected. And many times we will intervene or we will interact with our clients without knowing or being aware of which part will be triggered in
Mm.
his or her brain. Makes sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we need to be prepared that when that the concept of the butterfly effect
Mm.
applies here perfectly. So
Mm.
we touch here, and the whole system will be, I will say, readapt or will be activated based on our intervention.
Yeah.
So we need to be very mindful as a coach of the kind of interventions that we do, because the whole client, the whole brain of the client will
Mm.
be, I will say, taken to a different level of state of mind, if
Yeah.
the word says. And I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. And actually, I'm really appreciating hearing this idea around the brain being this system, the fact that there might be specific parts of the brain that have a key role, but actually they're always working together. And so there's something about actually the most effective brain is a brain that's working together, right? And
Absolutely.
as you touched on whole person coaching, this actually is about looking at an entire person, all of the different aspects of themselves, and how can we help them, right, step through change, right, as we focus on all of the aspects of them. So I think you described that beautifully, and you're absolutely right. A core element, one of the cornerstones of coactive coaching, is to focus on the whole person. And it's for that reason, if amongst others, right, to not seek to solve a problem, but actually to look at a person who wants to go through change and talk about all of the aspects of their life and how they need to come together, how they need to be integrated in order to create that change. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's wonderful. And so as we're talking, please go.
I will say, as a coach, we need to be aware that every time that we intervene in one way or the other, the most important part is to train ourselves to observe the impact of our interventions or our support, because that is where the key information will come to us. So we use techniques based on our coactive coaching in this case to work with our clients, but in the end, the most, I will say, important characteristic as a coach is how open-minded can we be, or how much can we train ourselves to listen ourselves as a whole. So not only considering the client, considering ourselves, because again, be attentive, because what happened with the client, we need to understand the impact of our intervention, our interaction, and better we listen, more we can help. We can help more. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And where we're going to be taking this questioning actually might pick up on that as a thread along the way. But what I'm hearing you talk about is the importance of truly actively listening
Absolutely.
to the client or the coachee that's in front of you, and being aware of actually the other information that exists right within that relationship. And there's some knowledge in neuroscience that tells us there is information that exists there, even if we're not conscious to it or aware of it, right? And there's something there for us to be listening to. And in coactive coaching, we would call that the level 3, right?
But I think that the 3 levels are very important. The level 1, when I'm I'm aware of myself, and the level 3, when I'm fully listening to my clients. So I think that the progression from 1 to 3 are crucial in a way that we need to learn how to listen.
Yeah. And are there any other aspects of neuroscience with respects to listening that might be interesting for us to know in this recording?
Yeah, but still I didn't respond your question about the neural networks.
Yes, yeah, true.
So definitely, Joseph, we can derail to different areas and talk for hours. That's for sure.
Of course.
I want to finish the previous question. So I started saying that the brain works as a whole, but today, even though there are, I will say, specializations, right brain, left brain, cortical side, instinctual side, emotional side. But over all that system, there are specific highways. Those are the neural networks. And they were described not too long ago, but those highways is the way that the different characters that we have inside, character, voices, personalities, whatever you want to define them, those highways are the way that they are able to connect to each other and to be expressed in the external world. I would like to define it just very briefly, says the 3 more important networks. Every time that we are focusing, that we are using our rational narrative or rational brain, we are using one specific network called the task positive network that mainly is concentrated in the prefrontal cortex. And that is the one that will allow us to arrive to conclusions, and to decide what to do. I mean, to really focus. This is the part of converging thinking, let's call it.
Mm.
The second one that is very, 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 very important, and coactive coaching describes that network without calling that network in that name, with that name, is what is called technically the default mode
Mm.
network. That is, I will say, the diverging thinking, not the converging thinking. Make sense?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So, and the diverging thinking means through the default mode network, we are able really to connect the whole system
Mm.
and to get or to bring information that will help us to find, I will say, the best way to solve whatever challenge we are facing.
Yeah.
So, and again, the coactive coaching talks about that, I mean, to
Mm.
bring all these elements that we have inside and the way to apply them.
Yeah.
And the last one that is the less known so far is the salience network. And the salience network is I would like to call it the orchestra director.
Okay. Yeah.
The salience network, that the core of the salience network are emotions. We will
Mm.
go there.
Yes, we will.
The salience network, based on what emotion is ruling the situation or is there,
Mm.
will decide to activate the task positive network or the default network.
Mm. How
So
interesting.
it's the one that decides what is needed in every moment.
Mm.
As a coach, we can, I would say, help or regulate these connections,
Yeah.
and we can work through this salience network to determine where to go.
Mm.
If we need to go to conclusions, let's activate this part of the brain. If we need to go deeper in our, I will say, looking for resources inside of us, the coactive coaching, as we have everything inside.
Mm-hmm.
But to look for everything that we have inside, only we can do it when we activate that second network.
Mm. Mm.
I don't want to complicate it too much. I hope
No.
that is clear.
Yeah, I think you're describing it beautifully, and it's really interesting to hear about these three different types of networks that exist.
Mhm.
And I want to play back what I thought I heard you say, which is this task positive network is about actually being in action. It's about
Yeah,
being in the thing, very focused, very
yeah,
convergent, as you say. And then this default mode network was more about actually being kind of the dreaming space, right?
absolutely.
And you talked about making connections and drawing conclusions, but up in this space, right? And in there was that middle network. Remind me of the name of it.
Is it salience?
Salience.
Salience.
Mm.
Salience.
And there's the salience network and this idea of that orchestra, right? It's
Yeah,
helping our brain tell us where do they need to be. And you're right, there's a parallel here in the corrective coaching philosophy. We talk a lot about the importance of being able to dance between the being and the doing, right? Being in
exactly.
action and being in that dreaming space. And so that's
Yeah.
this lovely parallel that you're drawing for us here.
But for dance in the moment, I would like to emphasize the power of intuition,
Mm.
because intuition is a completely different animal in
Mm.
our brain. And it's something that for years had a very negative marketing.
Mm.
When somebody says, it's my intuition, people didn't take it seriously.
Mm.
And what we know today about intuition is the most powerful source of information
Mm.
that we can use.
Mm. Say more about
Uh,
that. That sounds fascinating.
exactly.
Yeah.
And again, coactive coaching talks a lot about intuition. I love it.
Yeah.
So, and this is what we need to, but we need to understand what exactly is.
Mm. Mm.
So, intuition is not just, I will use a word I love, it's not just a magic concept, even though I love magic. But you know that behind magic always there is a trick. You know that. In the brain is the same. And intuition is the fastest way to get the right information in place.
Mm.
So works quite close to with the default mode network, but intuition again is a different being. Use different resources that not only we have here, but we have in all our brains, in our heart. You know that we have neurons there. You
Yes.
perfectly know. We discussed this before. And
Yes.
in our gut, that we have a complete nerve system.
Mm.
And I don't want to complicate the story, but our guts are a lot more powerful than we think
Mm.
through something that is called the microbiome. That is not the moment to talk about that today. So intuition is, and I like to use an analogy. Intuition is the best version of Google.
Mm.
Intuition is a system, if you let me define as a system, that connects everything, every single piece of information that we have inside,
Mm.
in our gut, in our heart, in our brain, three brains, one brain, whatever you want to define.
Yeah.
The intuition is the one that will say, what is the challenge? What is the problem? What is the question?
Mm.
And will ask you, give me time. Don't bother me. Go to sleep.
Mm.
And let me work. And intuition will look, it's exactly like writing a question to Google
Yeah.
and will bring a lot of information.
Mm.
One of the, I would say, important process for our client and for us as coaches is to understand and learn how to decode intuition information. The information comes from intuition. I'm not saying that 100% of the information is the right one. I'm not saying that because we need to check it after, with the system too. We need to check it with our rational brain. But again, our rational brain not always arrive to the right conclusion. So all of them cannot give us the right solution.
Yeah.
But all of them together will give us the best way to approach the, I would say, the best to the most convenient solution to our situation.
Yeah.
Make
It's,
sense?
yeah, it's fascinating to hear about this, and you're right. Most coaching models, proactive included, talks about using the power of intuition. And given what you've just said about how we draw conclusions and the importance of being able to rationalize and check in with our rational brain about those intuitive hits, are there any recommendations or considerations that you think coaches should make when they're having those intuitive hits? What would neuroscience say about that?
You mean recommendation for coaches
For
or for
coaches,
client? For coaches.
for coaches.
I will say, I tell you, this is what in the way I work with my clients, but we can work ourselves in the same way. Because depends on the personality,
Mm,
we can we can have more capacity to listen or knowing how to decode that information.
mm,
Some people are more predominantly analytical minds, that's fine. And then we need to understand when to move from one to the other, right? My recommendation for coaches is this is the way I work as a coach. Whatever thought or feeling in your body, because we will go there later, comes to you meanwhile you are in the coaching session, please consider that is important for your client.
mm,
What I'm trying to say is everything that comes to us during a coaching session in one way or the other was triggered by the conversation, then was triggered by the client,
mm,
our client. In my practice, I already defined that whatever comes to my mind during that process belongs to my client, not to me. And
mm.
maybe I don't fully understand because came from the intuitive
Yeah,
highway,
yeah,
but I will present it to my client. So don't be shy on that.
yeah.
I I have tons of experience when I just share that
Mm,
information that came to me from nowhere, it's
yeah,
not nowhere,
yeah,
and the client said it's exactly what I was thinking, or that connects with this and this and this. What I'm trying to say in a simple way, coaches, trust your gut.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Which,
And don't be you, the one that will be holding you back or judging if it's the right or wrong. Test it with your client. And I will give you another tip. Then you can be okay with what I'm recommending first.
yeah.
Don't worry. If that information has no relation with your client and it's something that belongs to you, your client not even will listen to that. So will not
Mm,
react. Don't worry. We cannot influence people so easily. That is a wrong concept.
mm,
So we can help people touching the right buttons, but the client is are activating what happened after. Makes sense what I'm saying? I don't want to make it complicated.
yeah, no, what I'm hearing you talk about, so maybe I'll share what I'm hearing is
Please.
uh, it's okay to have these intuitive hits. That
Yes,
information isn't coming from nowhere. There's one of our many brains, one of our
absolutely.
system is telling us something. And actually, there's a real gift in checking in with that client. Like, oh, I'm noticing this, or I've suddenly had this smell that's found me, or I've had,
Exactly.
here's an image that's come up for me. And there's an opportunity to check in with the client. Like, does that mean anything to you? What do you make up about that?
Exactly.
And it may make sense to them. And the thing you went on to talk about is that then helps them, it supports them in creating more connections, more conclusions, right? And
Absolutely.
we're giving them that gift to do that, right? Rather than
Absolutely.
taking that action ourselves, right?
And that take me to another thought.
Mm.
We need to respect our clients at the same level that we are. What I mean is, and at the same time, we need to engage them and make them accountable of the process
Yes.
and to avoid any situation that will put us as a savior, because
Mm.
that is a
Yeah.
completely unproductive and unhealthy place.
Yeah.
So the client is part of the process, should be accountable,
Mm.
and then we are supporting somebody that will know what to do. And not only that, we'll decide what to do based on this is the best for our client, like we say in coactive coaching, right?
Yeah.
So the client has the whole information, but what we are doing is just helping to organize their thoughts,
Yeah.
maybe to in the reframing process, I mean, present in a different way. We are opening certain doors that the client was not able to open they were not able to open by themselves because they are too stuck in one thought, I mean, in one bias sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's our work as a coach. But in the end, it's their decision, is their
Mm.
accountability, and is their own process.
Yeah. I so appreciate hearing you say that, and I can hear how in love you are with our coactive philosophy, right? And it's ringing so true in what you're saying, um, because you're right. We've got various principles within the coactive coaching philosophy around how do you work with multiple perspectives, how do you open those doors for people to see into other ways of viewing their context or their situations.
Yeah, you
Um,
call it the balance, right?
yeah, absolutely. Our balance formula, and then
Yeah,
you're
balance.
also talking about one of the other fundamental cornerstones of the model, which is holding our clients as naturally creative, resourceful, and whole.
Exactly.
In other words, they do have the knowledge and the wisdom that's inside them, and one of our roles as the coach, holding that title of coach, is to unearth that information for them. And there's some neuroscience. Great to hear that there's some neuroscience that supports that, right?
Absolutely.
The act of doing that is actually evidence based.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I want to take us back a little bit, if I may, because we kind of skipped over emotions. We named it, but didn't really go too deep. And I'm curious about what neuroscience has to say about how coaches use emotions or help clients be with their emotions.
I will say that this is the most controversial concept
Hmm.
in the neuroscientific world. Even though this is the key
Hmm.
component and understanding, without understanding this, we are out of the game as a neuroscientist or as a coach.
Hmm.
Human beings are mainly emotional beings, not mainly rational beings. This is a completely wrong statement.
Mm.
And I'm sure that you know, I mean, Antonio Damasio's quote, right? I mean, we are not, I mean, rational beings that feel. We are emotional beings that think.
I think.
What we know today is every time that we action, so we decide to do something,
Mm.
we only can do it through our emotions.
Mm.
Again, there is an historical negative marketing connected with the word emotional. We use it in every language. We use it in a negative way. When we say don't be emotional, we're saying what we are trying to say is you're not managing your emotion. But that's not what we are talking today. What we are talking today is there is no way to avoid emotions in a positive or in a negative way.
Mm.
And our work as a coach, and this is going to be tough, we're going to say now,
Yeah. But say
is is if we want to make change in our clients, our work is 100% connected with our clients' emotions.
it. Mm.
If not, there is no change. Period.
Mm. Mm.
It's not. If not, it's just a rational game or mental game defining things that will take to nowhere.
Mm.
The vehicle to action any conclusion, any decision are emotions. Positive emotions, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But when again, also is a bad understanding of positive or negative because negative emotions will give some piece of information
Of course.
that we as a coaches we can help. I'm perfectly mindful about the importance of emotion, the coactive coaching model.
Mm.
And I think whoever designed this at the beginning or created was quite aware of how the brain was working.
Mm.
Then there was this wrong separation, I mean, or you believe in emotions or you believe in rational things.
Mm.
That's a completely wrong understanding how the brain works. And that is something that we need to bring together. There's no way they work apart, they work together. But I would say the driver of the whole system are a, one emotion or the other.
Mm.
And even though, if we really want to help our clients to make changes and to move forward in the process, we need to link it to an emotion. That's or to some kind of emotion. It's the only way that that's going to work. And after the session, that person will be able to do it.
Mm.
If not, there's no way.
Yeah, yeah. You know, what you're bringing up for me is some of the language that gets taught in coactive coaching is being in resonant choice, right?
Absolutely.
And that's not rational, right? This is about taking a client into a place where they really feel an energetic, experience, a whole body experience
Absolutely.
around the topic that they're being coached on. And very rarely, or certainly from my experience, that's not a rational place. That's an emotive place.
Yeah.
And there's, to your point, there's that almost that unspoken information that they become aware of through their emotions as
Yeah.
they feel this energy, this kinetic energy. And then when they get into that place of rational choice, that's when you can move the conversation forward, right? And
Absolutely.
they can take action from that place that they otherwise weren't aware of.
Absolutely. And you were bringing here something I want to include in the question, that is the body. And I mean, I know that coactive coaching talks a lot about embodiment, and it's not by chance.
Yeah.
So number one, and I want to be provocative on this. Emotions are not located in the limbic system. Emotion, that is the headquarter, let's say, of emotion. Emotions are located in the whole body. If I'm in a coaching session and my client will say, in just out of the blue, refer something about the body, I mean, it's something or pain or whatever, we will go there because that is bringing information. We storage information in our body, emotional information. So then, if we go in a opposite way through the body, we can mobilize emotions, activate emotions, change behavior in the same way that we can do it through rational analysis.
Mm.
Well, we know today that 50% at least of positive emotions can be triggered from the neck down, so through our body.
Yeah.
This is the typical, I mean, the best example, you don't feel okay and then you go for a walk and then you feel okay, you know, or go for a run or you do something physical. So, or you dance or people put music. I mean, the body is so powerful to change, to influence our emotions. Very powerful in one way or the other, depends,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
If something painful would be different.
So how do you think that coaches should work with the body, and what we're understanding about the neuroscience behind embodiment? What's your best tips, your top tips about working with embodiment?
I know that coactive coaching has certain techniques about to work with the body,
Mm.
and I don't know if that's what you are asking me, but definitely. I mean, many times when I see that some situation is we are stuck in some situation, just
Mm.
asking my client to move around or to do some movement with them, or just to let's say extend hands, I mean arms, or to do some body movement
Yeah.
that can unblock the process.
Mm.
So there are many techniques. I mean, there's a list of techniques to do that. I mean, some people, again, I know some coaches, they put music and ask the client to dance, I know, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for a while. So there are many techniques. But the concept that we need to highlight today is, again, more than 50% of positive emotions can be triggered by body involvement.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is fascinating, and I'm sure there'll be many people that listen to this that, like me, are surprised by how high that percentage is.
Yeah.
And just stresses how important that thinking about embodiment and thinking about the body as it connects to the brain, why that's so important. Yeah.
We need to be also cautious because not too many people feel comfortable with this
Mm.
involving the body. And then this is not about, again, doing something that would be against their will or something that they will feel awkward or whatever.
Mm.
That's why sometimes they are very simple things, doing a mudra with the hands or doing just some more. I mean, you don't need to, it's not the same forever. That's what I want to say. But explaining this to the client can help. And then they will understand that we are not just playing with that we are
Mm.
doing something that we know that has a neuroscientific support, therefore has a neurological impact on them.
Mm. Yeah, which feels really important. There is a segment of the world of professional coaches that focus on executive coaching or leadership coaching, and I myself have found myself in coach-client relationship with those individuals who are a bit resistant, to maybe trying some embodiment or moving around the space, and
Exactly.
being able to explain to them now in neuroscience terms, why is that actually important? Well, there is information there, right? There is a way that we can help create awareness for you, right? And by listening to
Absolutely.
your body, I can see that creating some really powerful shifts. That's great
I,
to hear.
I totally agree with you. I use that technique when people are quite resistant to do something physical. I ask just a simple question. I mean, how many times did you go for a walk when you didn't feel okay?
Mm.
Many times. Okay, that's what we are talking about. That's it, period.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a great example.
You were using your body to change your mood. So that's what we are looking for.
Yeah. I think that's great. And so now, where this is leading me is we've kind of named three really important things, right? We've talked about intuition, we've talked about emotions, and we've talked about embodiment, right? The use of the body.
Absolutely.
So, what does all of that mean for coaches as they try to create sustainable change in clients? Like, how do those three things come together to help create change?
I would say the three of them are, again, I would use the word vehicle. I mean, are
Mm.
the three of them are the way to channeling our
Mm.
clients' needs.
Mm.
So we need to use emotions, intuitions, embodiment.
Yeah.
are not, those are not the one that will create the final change or establish the final change. That is our client's responsibility again.
Mm.
But we as a coaches, if we understand how the system works, how the neuroscience behind works,
Mm.
we can help them
Mm.
to find the most adequate way to to establish that the change will be there, so that the
Mm.
change will be a fact.
Mm.
Concept number one, something called the compelling vision. So,
Mm.
and also coactive coaching about the vision talks a lot.
Yeah.
There is no way to change our behavior if we don't change the way we think about the
Mm.
change. That is what called vision. And the concept is visions lead behavior.
Mm.
So if I want to work on behavior to produce a change or to provoke a change, to stimulate a change, I need to work first on the vision.
Mm.
What I'm trying to say is to define, to help our clients to define the final scenario. So what do you see as your best scenario?
Mm.
Why? Because that is what makes it attractive. And
Mm.
then we want to do something towards that vision.
Yeah.
Without a compelling vision, there's no change of behavior.
Mm.
And that is something that us as a coach, we can help a lot to create, to give it shape. And even though I work with all senses, when I ask my client, okay, just tell me, show me in a vision first, how do you see yourself? I mean, it's a final end regarding this particular situation. And sometimes I say, how do you see yourself dressed? What smell? I mean, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? What
Yeah.
what is the weather in that moment? So you can add whatever you want,
Yeah.
whatever that will be connected with emotions. Remember,
Mm.
the way to engrave or to imprint emotion, a change needs to be connected with one emotion,
Mm.
a positive emotion.
Mm.
That vision definitely will awake emotions. And that's what I ask to my guy. Okay,
Mm.
which emotion do you feel seeing that scenario? Now let's talk about the strategy how to get there.
Yeah.
And that is we define the steps how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah, it's so fascinating and so interesting to me, I just love everything that you're saying. The one thing that I've heard you repeat a few times is the idea of accountability,
Yes.
and I wondered if you wanted to say a few words about, what does neuroscience have to say about how do we hold accountability and why that's effective?
To be able to do that, we need to be very, very self-aware.
Mm.
And I will introduce another concept of coactive coaching that is self-management, of how we are dealing with the coaching session.
Mm.
If we are dealing, because that happens, let's be honest, this is a bias that happens many times. We are so willing to help our client that we start behaving like a savior.
Mm.
I will save this person. It's an internal narrative, it's not something we say. In that moment, the possibility of change of our client is zero because we cannot save anyone. They need to save themselves. They need to do the work. If we can keep in mind and through something that in neuroscience is called metacognition, that is thinking about thinking. So I need to be all the time in my coaching session observing myself
Mm. Yeah.
and attentive to my thoughts and my emotions. I'm not saying in a critical way, I'm saying in a conscious way. So what is the game here? I tell you what happened to me. When in a moment that I start, if this thought comes to my mind, why I want to help this person, whatever the situation is, I already have this voice outside that's metacognition. It's my real me that's saying,
Mm.
hey, what? Watch out. That person is playing victim and you are playing the savior.
Mm. Yeah.
And then I reframe the whole situation. Makes sense? But that's my own self-management thing. How I control, I need to take care about my own process to be able to help my client. It's okay, or I'm
Yeah,
derailing.
no, I think you're so right. And you know, in some of the previous conversations you and I have had, you know, we've reminded ourselves about, you know, what's that pure definition, that real meaning of coaching, right? And you know, supporting someone on their journey, you know, from A to B. We're not dragging them, kicking and screaming, and we're also not declaring on their behalf. That's the end point. You know, it's for them to declare the end point, right? And so, what I appreciate you saying around self-management is not leading the client's agenda, right?
Absolutely.
Where, you know, let's go where you want to go, dear client.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get to point the direction, and I'm here on the journey with you, right? And whatever's coming up for me in our coaching relationship, like we were talking about earlier, I give that to you as a gift, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And you get to be empowered, and you get to hold accountability and be at choice around
Absolutely.
what you do with that information. Yeah.
But let's be mindful as well that what we can do is to help our client to organize the agenda.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, not we are not the one responsible what is going to be included, but we can help them how to organize it to get to really a good end,
Yeah.
positive end.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. Are there any other, just based on what you know about the coactive model, are there any other skills that are worth us mentioning on this in this call? Anything else that stands out for you?
Well, we didn't talk a lot, nothing about the inner narrative or the internal team. That we can leave it for the next conversation.
Yeah, we'll signpost that for another time.
Yeah, because the internal team, I would say, is the most fascinating things when I found out about that and how powerful it is impacting clients.
Yeah.
When with the clients, you can define the internal voices and the different objective of these voices and how they interact with each other. And again, how through my self-management, I can keep the control and be in charge. If not, these internal team members can do whatever they want.
You send me back to think about the orchestra,
Exactly.
you talked about, right? Yeah.
But one thing are the neural networks, another things are the voice or the narrative. So the characters that will walk those networks. Make sense? So it's a completely those two different modes that they are connected.
Yeah, well, that's so interesting, and yes, let's definitely have another call, right, to talk about that. That probably could be a whole call in itself, couldn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. And just as let's say, what to tell to a client about this stuff, what the clients will appreciate from us. I think that explaining this concept of the internal team and explaining the concept of the power of emotion and from the scientific point of view is crucial. Because in my own experience, most of the time we deal with very rational people, let's say, or analytical people, and they need to understand that emotions is not touchy-feely stuff at all. It's the core of the whole human behavior. So explaining this to them is that will help to make the change.
And if there, I'm going to put you on the spot. If there was a key sentence or something that you would, you know, almost verbatim as a coach share with your client, what would those words be?
Oh gosh, I will tell them what happened in the brain. 80% of the inputs that we receive comes through emotions and instinct. Let's work on how to learn to deal with them. Because those are the ones that will take you to the right place if you know how to deal and manage them. And that is what the coaching process can help you with.
That's amazing. Well, Carlos, I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for joining me here and for entertaining my questions and curiosity about neuroscience. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, okay. We have a lot of things to talk yet.
Yeah, we sure do. Yeah. Well, until next time, I'll see you again.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Joseph.
Bye for now.